Hello and welcome back. So this is the delayed live stream from yesterday. So today we're going to be doing a bit of masking with embossing powder. So this is good where we want to build lots of layers into our artwork, where we want to end up with something that's going to have a really glossy finish and almost be like enamel. So what you're going to need a permanent ink pad, and that's going to be for your focal image that you're going to stamp first. You're going to need a clear embossing pad or embossing ink. So we've got a couple of options that we can use. You're going to want a clear embossing powder. You're going to want a tray to do that into. And you are going to need some inks and ink blending brushes or sponges. Either will do for this one. So don't be afraid to say hi and let me know that you're watching. I'm going to give a few more minutes for people to join, just because it is a bit of an unusual time. And let's grab a messy tray so don't make too much mess, she says. So Ian is here manning comments, but I can also see them too. So do say hi and let me know that you're watching, that everything's connected properly, because I'm starting to wonder, because we had a little bit of a glitch, didn't we? So this is take 2. Got to love technology. So I'm going to be working with the Inky Birds. So Inky Soulbird, and I have the Inky Bird too. So it's whether you want to use a hummingbird or if you want to use a blue tick. So I'm going to be going for, let's go for the hummingbird. So in each set you have a load of texture stamps. You get a sentiment and you've got 2 focal images. So we want to be using one of those onto our card or paper, and you want to be working with something that has a little bit of body to it, because we're going to be building up lots of layers and we don't want it to warp too much. And you're going to be using a heat gun. So hi Melanie, hi Catherine. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to see everybody's comments. And I'm going to start off by deciding which colour I'm going to go for, and I'm going to pull out archival ink pad, and I'm going to go for the black. It's going to be boring for this first one, but I would say is while you are learning this, it's better to go with a stronger ink pad. So also as we build up the layers, it's going to be.
Hello everyone from Puerto Rico.
Hello. So with your card inventory, you can start to plan which of your layout, and you want to have enough room so that the masking we're going to be doing is actually going to give you a really obvious effect. So I think our big bird's going to be just too big.
Hello Northwood, Germany, and Carol Rose.
Hello, hello. So it's a bit of a different time, so do let us know what you think of this slot. And I'm going to pop my stamp onto a clear block, but you can use a stamp platform if you feel more comfortable doing that. For something like this, where it's not important to get a perfect image, then I don't mind using just a block. So we're going to ink up our stamp well with a permanent ink. And that's so that when we start to do our ink blending over the top, the image isn't going to get smudged.
Evening, Carol.
Oh, I didn't realise that the notifications didn't go out. That's a bit of a shame, isn't it? So, with that inked up, I'm going to decide whereabouts I want to put it. And I'm going to put it up in this top right corner, like so. And give it a good press down. So you'll notice I'm leaving one hand static and the other one is moving around the stamp to transfer pressure. Then when I want to change over, always have one hand that isn't moving. There we go. Okay, my light's doing weird things all on its own. That's a bit weird. So,
I didn't do anything, it wasn't me.
there we go, and I can just peel that off gently, and we've got a stamped image. So, with that in place, we can now work over the top. And don't worry if at this point you're thinking, oh, it's not really strong, it's not showing how much I want it to. That's fine, because we're going to be working over the top with some distress inks, and that's going to build that colour anyway. Okay, so once we've done that one, if you are concerned whether your ink might be dry, you can heat set it before we go too much further. So I'm going to do that very quickly. So you'll notice I heat set from the front and the back, and that's to try and avoid the card warping too much. So next, let's pull out some of these texture stamps. So we have some ink splodges, we have texture stamps that are more of a background in nature, where we can actually use them to create shaded areas to our piece. You have some splatters, and then I really like this one here. So I'm thinking, because I want something that's going to be quite strong for this first stamp and quite bold, I'm going to use that one. So you can use whichever stamp is kind of the most solid. So we're just going to pop that onto our block, and we're going to get our embossing ink. Now you can either use one with a little sponge top like so, or you can use a pad. So first of all, let's go for the pad option. Now mine's a nice fresh pad, so it's going to be quite inky, but that's good because that's what our powder is going to cling to. And I'm going to position my stamp so that it goes around my main image. And all of these textured stamps that we're doing, it's not important how good of an impression you get, because you're going to keep building the layers.
Taylor?
Hi Taz, and congrats on the sellouts of the Drunken Dust earlier. So with that one on, now if I hold this up, you're going to see it's got like a little bit of a shine where the embossing pad, or the embossing ink, sorry. So now we're going to get our clear embossing powder, and we're going to go over the top.
Carol says she didn't know they did a like you roll on sort of thing.
Yeah, it goes back to when there used to be an enamelling technique that you used to do on like chipboard, where you would build layers upon layers upon layers, and this was even before the melt pot really came into existence. Okay, so I'm going to put the excess back into the pot, otherwise this is going to get very messy. Tidy tray very useful for this as well, so that we're not getting too much excess powder around. You see, old school, you see. So this one's from Judikins, if you want to look it up and see if it's still available. I dread to think how old mine is.
I can't believe it sold out in 20 minutes. Literally got one of each left, I think. Oh God.
Oh, you saved them for me, did you, Taz? So with your heat gun, you want to get it really nice and warm. So I tend to warm it on the back first, otherwise you can blow away the powder. And then when it's warm enough, you can start to actually heat over the top. And you're going to see it lifts slightly in colour. Okay. I'm just going to pop my heat gun there for a minute. So if I hold this up close, hopefully you can see, you've got kind of a little bit of a bobbly texture to it. And you might think, oh, that's no good. Don't worry too much at this stage, because as we build up the layers, it's going to get smoother and smoother and smoother. Now, the newer your embossing powder is, the smoother it's going to go quicker. So if you're working for something that's really old, it's probably going to take a good 3 or 4 layers before you lose that. Whereas a new one, you should get smooth pretty quickly. If not on the first layer, you'll get it on the second.
Mum says you're half off screen.
Oh, let's have a quick flick and just check. Bear with me. Okay, I go up a bit. There we go. Let's see. Is it because I've knocked my camera? There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay, so if I hold, come on, camera's trying to,
Autocorrect.
yeah, and he's like, don't do that. Okay, so I'm just going to very quickly pop Facebook back up as well so I can see. He's the new cameraman. Sack him again. No, he's nowhere near it. It's all down to me to work the cameras. Okay, so with that one done.
I'm just moral support, aren't I?
Yeah. Moral support and director. More director than cameraman. Now I'm going to grab the other texture stamp. I'm going to do quite a light coverage onto this one because it's quite a solid stamp and I don't necessarily want all of it. But no, this is a new pad. It's probably going to give me all of it. So this is literally open today for how new the pad is. So I'm going to go. Okay, so try and fit it around the tail. I'm going to go there. No, don't pick on him. He's you're nervous for next weekend, aren't you? Because on the news here it's all been like, oh, and we're running a test event ready for the Commonwealth Games where we'll be having the opening ceremony. It's like so it's not long to go, and yet the first rehearsal's next weekend, isn't it?
It is.
So not a lot of time. Okay. Now, if you wanted to, for these initial layers, you can do some of your stamping in colour, and that is going to help you in terms of if there's a particular colour that you want to have pop, because as we build up the layers you're going to basically be working over colour. No, you're definitely not allowed to pick on him there.
It's your job, isn't it, sweet?
Yeah, definitely my job, and it's going to be televised as well. I will give all the details as soon as I know them. Okay. There we go. So once you've got your initial couple of stamps, you don't want to have too many at this point. We're going to work with paler colours and we're going to build them up so that it's going to get stronger and stronger. Yep, definitely lots of tapping fingers to get it back in the pot. And let's go for, you ideally when you're learning, stick to inks. So I'm going to go for one lipstick just for a change. And let's bring in something that's a little bit lighter. I'm going to go to spun sugar. So you can work with 2 shades of colours. You could work with 2 shades of 2 colours, so that you end up having a bit of a multicoloured effect going on. But I find if you just start with just one colour, you're going to get the hang of what's actually happening. So, blending brush. We're going to do nice circular motions over the pad, and then we're going to go really, and you're going to start to see that your stamping is appearing. Now I've obviously still got a little bit of colour left on my blending brush, just a touch. Somewhat giving away what colour I was using last. So I'm going to work around the outside edges first, and again that's going to make a difference as you build up your layers with your final bit.
Move up just a little bit on the screen.
Okay, so just there. Now I'm going to take that colour over our other bit masking. There you go, so you can see that really pop. So with that done, grab a tissue or a piece of kitchen towel and you're going to rub it over the top of your embossing. It's quite an important step because that's going to mean that your next layer, if you accidentally stamp over your embossing, is going to keep it nice and clean. Okay, just going to add a little bit more colour just there. It's just a little bit too white. There we go, just using what's left on the brush. So now we're going to repeat that same technique. So we're going to get our stamp, we're going to get our clear ink.
Hi Philip.
Whoa! Lightly tap your stamp, and again we're going to apply our stamp but somewhere different. So I'm going to take this one along this bottom edge here, and peel that one away, and let's go for a spatter stamp this time. So my embossing pad's got quite a soft foam to it, so you really do want to go quite light with it. Each time I'm going to try and keep to about 2 to 3 impressions per layer max. So over the top. Now the other thing to note is as you're building up your layers, you're also likely to find that some of the clear embossing is going to stick on your previous layers. And for the most part that's fine, as long as you do that clean off with tissue, you're going to still get the same result.
Mum said to try and keep your work over the ring light.
Okay, that's all right, but it's a different angle from here. So if I do that, it's down here, literally. So from where you can see, that's where I see the ring light. Got a lot of perspective.
Okay, switching.
Okay. So there we go. So we've got the next layer on. Just going to give it a little waft so it's not quite so warm to then do the ink blending on. And I'm going to go back to the spun sugar for this next layer.
I was only popped in to see what was happening whilst eating dinner.
Okay. More the merrier. Let's get a bit more colour on that. So you can really start to see that pop. But whereas with this one you can see the white of the card underneath, because we did that layer and then did our embossing, we've got the pink showing through this bit. So hence I say, if you really want to go mad with this, you could do like the first layer is orange, then the next layer is pink, then the next one's purple, then the next one's black. And you could do like a sort of cosmos effect. Go full out galaxy. So
Okay, so she hasn't missed much.
No, I stamped the image above permanent ink and then just did a couple of stamps for the first layer with the clear embossing, blended with a light layer of the spun sugar over the top, then did a couple more with the clear embossing, which is where you can see these. Now what I would say is, don't be tempted to go, okay, I've done over that one, done over that one, next. Because the whole point is that you're building up your layers. So do take it over the other sections that you've also done.
Oh, and that is not allowed to stream drunk. It's not good for her.
I've only done it once. And even then, I'm not drunk, am I?
No. Yeah, alcohol and streaming don't go well, do they?
No. For starters, I can't get my words out right. It's just not good.
That's before you've had a drink.
I was going to say. Drinking might improve that one. Okay. So, one more and then I think I might do a kind of finished layer. Just looking at time, not doing too bad. So, I'm going to pull out the kind of blotchy scribbly stamp. You end up giving them all sorts of funny names. Now this is one that would be really good if you did it in a colour ink first, when we did that first layer, so that it really pops through. But we can also it would have to be an awfully long straw. No, we don't tend to drink a lot, do we?
But I don't.
Yeah. I'm more of a drinker than you are. Okay, so let's go. And this time I'm going to actually take it over my image. So let's go just there. And I'm going to do one more. I'm going to use the same image. And let's go over there. Got to do my cleaning off, didn't I? What did I do? Oh, do as I say, not do as I do. Right. So let's get this last layer on.
You've lost your embossing powder, didn't you?
Yeah. Now what you will find is as you start to build up the layers with the distress ink, there's going to be much more of a tendency for it to stick elsewhere too. But try not to panic, because you can sort most things. Occasionally you get some that's just like you can't tell where you're going, but for the most part. Should be alright. So, if I hold this up, you can see that you've got like a ghost of powder all over, but you can kind of see where your stamped image is. So, what I'm going to do is very carefully, with a soft brush, is just try and just clean it up just a little. So do a little brush, then a flick, and usually you'll find that they start to lift up. So it's very soft brush. At the end of the day, it's all just texture.
Mel saying that she loves the stamps. Asked if anybody saw the show today. Yes, we watched, didn't we?
Yes, we did watch. I don't always get a chance to, but with it being a weekend, it's a bit easier, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We've also been tidying today, haven't we? And dare I say, yes, we planned another studio move round again, because we still haven't got it quite where how we want it. So, but we'll get there.
So it's the technique you did on that one that I said about.
It's the one I did on my other set of samples, where I actually did like and turned it into a vintage photograph by the end of it, which is quite cool. So you don't have to do something. Ian didn't sound impressed about the tidying. No, Ian's not impressed with me, the fact that I want to move the studio around.
Again, it took us best part of a week last time.
Yeah, and we still have stuff.
Still haven't got it back in that I took out last time. She wants to move it around again and move stuff again.
And put it this way, he said that if it doesn't get back in here, it's going in a bin bag. So
I should bring the lads round from work and get them to do it.
yeah. So let's get that heated up.
She still finds something out.
Yeah, I'd still run out of room yet. Okay, so now we're going to go in with our darkest colour.
Which is?
Which is, in this case, one lipstick. I'm still going to keep my bird image quite clear, so whereas when I did this last time I went over the whole image, because this is a really fun one to colour in, I'm going to try and keep it so that I can still do a little bit colouring. I'm not going to go too mad. So because our embossing goes over the bird too, you're going to find that you do have a bit of embossing that's going to look like it's not showing up just yet. But when you do your colouring, it'll pop through.
Yeah, thank you, Taz. So it's looking fab.
I may still go one shade darker yet. Just looking at it. So, let's go for, I'm going to keep this really simple and very hummingbird like colours.
What pens are they?
These are just water-based markers, so any water-based marker will do. Could be a felt tip pen, really doesn't have to be posh. I'm just going to peel that out my way just so I can have a white space to work on. I'm just going to scribble out a little bit of colour onto my mat, so hopefully you can see that.
Yeah, it's just on screen by the looks of it.
Okay, now I'm going to pick that up with a water brush and I'm going to do a little bit of colouring just over the belly.
Move it just a
Okay, so a little bit of colour on the belly. Now I want to do a light grey colour. And I'm going to drop that in, so remove that tide line a bit, like so. So if you pick up some of that pink to bring down into the tail, that's fine. Just get a bit more of that grey and go down into the bottom of these feathers. So these are really fun to colour as well, because you don't have to stick to natural colouring for a particular bird that you're doing. So I'm just going to take a bit of water just there, and let's just stretch that up the wing. So if it's already wet, then we'll be kind of halfway there. And then we'll start to put in the black. So black, when we're using it, is going to be quite strong. So just start off with a little bit up the top and just let that flow along where you added that water. And we're going to drag that colour down. Now bear in mind where you're going over your embossing, it's going to pull either side. That's not to say that it's wrong to do that. It's going to be a different effect. So you can kind of emphasise that with your colour if you want to. Just going to drop in a bit more with this section here, where this wing's further back. And down here into the kind of the shoulder area, and underneath, and there we go. So you'll be able to do this so much slower than I am. And you can follow all those little sketchy lines to kind of give you little bits of a hint of where you're going to put your colour. And let's just very lightly do his beak. There we go. Now, you definitely want to heat set that because you want to try and get as much moisture out of that card as possible before we do the next bit. I'll just bend my card back. So the thicker your card you're working on, the better, just so it keeps a little bit flatter. And let's get my messy tray back because I'm going to need that in a minute. Now, make sure that's dry. If there's anything that you want to do in terms of the outline, this is the time to do it before you go any further. So I'm just going to quickly grab the fine liner and I'm just going to do a little bit of an eye like so. Let's just grab a white gel pen too. Okay. Just going to give that a very quick heat set. Now the benefit of going for having one that has a little bit of a sponge tip, and we're going to very gently now bear in mind that your distress inks are water reactive, so don't be tempted to kind of go like this over the top for this first layer. And the reason I'm not using my pad to do this is my pad is a absolute fresh pad. So the last thing I want to do is go and put it straight in ink because it will definitely go and my clear pad will suddenly become a tinted pad. But likewise, you don't want to use a tinted pad for this step because otherwise that tint will come through your embossing powder. To just seeing if you can still get the
That's the ink at the end.
yes.
Do you want to just...
There you go. Now the other thing to mention is I'm using clear detail embossing powder. You're actually better off using just a normal clear powder rather than a detail one. Just I've run out of the other one. So let's see if we can just get that in the image a little bit without ending up wearing it. Always tricky.
Stampenders do one.
There you go.
Called the Boss Gloss. It's £5.71 a bottle. And it looks like WoW do one as well.
Good old WoW. So the one I'm using is a WoW powder.
And I think the closest one that you have is the Stampenders one that you do.
Now if I'm lucky and I'm quick, rather than having to re-ink again, should just be able to use the heat, she says.
Well, that just fell straight back off.
Yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on how quick you are. Just heat set what's on there and then I'll come back in. The other thing to note is just go really careful around your edges as well.
And hot to do one as well.
Okay, I'm going to pop this back in the pot, so I'm going to have a bit of an easier time to shrink it back over in a minute. Then I'll have the embossing back off here.
Yeah. So Timmy does one too.
It's quite a cool effect, especially by the time that you've finished. So, one more layer should do it for this one. So now that we've sealed most of it in, we should be able to just go over the top. Rather than having to dab. Now doing it this way, you're never going to have perfect edges, but I don't want them in this case. Okay. And I can lightly tip that way. Turn it round, try not to wear it.
We find that stuff forever.
Yeah, last time I did this, I ended up finding embossing powder under everything. Absolutely everything. So sometimes no matter how careful you are, and believe me, I go very careful when it comes to embossing powders and glitters and things, it still gets everywhere. Top tip is if you do it into a box, that will catch most of the excess. But
Jenny says she's got to shoot, but pretty please post the finished piece. Love it so far.
will do. So I'm going to wait a few moments before trying to pick that up, because what you're going to find is this does get super duper hot. So especially when you've got the like 2 or 3 layers on that we now have. That's all over. And you can see that it's getting really glossy now. Okay. So if we look in this area down here, it's really smooth. So that's the look that you would really want to go for all over. So there's still some bits just in that middle. Actually, there's a little bit there. I'm just going to do a little bit more heat on. There we go. Yeah. So wait for that to cool down for a moment. So any questions while we're waiting?
Carl said she's not seen it before.
Really? Oh, I'll have to show you the triple embossing then. So I'm going to go for a darker colour, and I think for a change I'm going to go Aged Mahogany. So usually what I would do is go for something like Walnut Stain or Black Soot, something where it's a bit darker. But it's interesting to also mix it up a bit. I think I might have to do another one where it goes through the colours so you can see that, because that looks cool too. So you could do the same effect with things like your Drunken Dust, your explosion powders if you wanted to, watercolours. Just it's a lot quicker to show you with inks. Da, da, da. Getting there, not too bad. So around the edges, you're never going to get a perfect finish unless you do like 4 or 5 layers, but that's okay because we're going to play on that. So one thing I am going to do before I try and ink on here actually, very quickly, there we go. I'll get my hoover on this in a bit. It's another top tip, have a hoover that you can keep for your desk. So I just have a little USB chargeable one that we can just nip in and do that with. So, Aged Mahogany, here we go. And you're going to see on the edges it doesn't seem like it's going to do a lot, but then as we go around, particularly as you keep blending, you can see it finds all these little holes around the outside edge. So if I hold that up a bit, hopefully I've got that in the right place. You can see we've got this kind of darker area around the edge. It's going to pop through. Now, even once we've done this step, if you want to, you can still go and put another coat of gloss over the top so that even that is sealed in. It depends on the particular piece of artwork that you are doing.
Gosh, I should have it so far. I'm thinking I would go with blues.
Yep, blues would be cool. You can do things like cracking as well, so particularly once you've got 4 or 5 layers of the clear embossing powder over the top, you'll find it's much easier to do things like the cracking. I did a pretty good job of actually coating this bottom edge.
Just because you said you wouldn't get a perfect edge.
Yeah.
Just to prove you wrong.
Just to prove me wrong. That's okay, it can prove me wrong. But it looks really good if you do it in like antique linen, old paper, bundled sage looks good for doing things like your vintage photos. So if you've got some of the Lynette's little people, you can actually do a proper vintage photo, which is cool, and actually build it up. What I would say is if you are gluing any layers on prior to doing this technique, leave it 24 hours and make sure that the glue is well and truly dry. Because if there's any moisture at all, that's when you tend to get more bubbling, bobbling, warping.
Oh yeah, so sorry. So late.
That's okay. It's a bit of an odd time, isn't it? So it's not usually a time that we would do, is it?
No.
So I'm going to take this all over the top as well, just in case there's any little sections that just managed to miss having any embossing. So you can see there's a few bits just here. It's just putting some little dots in. Same just there. And you can see I'm not being overly precious about it. It's quite forgiving in terms of bending and flexibility at this point. So, and there we go. We've got our inky edges. Grab your tissue and give it a good polish.
Yeah, Facebook notifications are all over the shop at the moment, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. I was saying in the chat yesterday, you know, a lot of crafters have noticed that the lives that they're doing just aren't getting the same amount of views because the notifications aren't going out. And I don't think it even matters if you do things like following. As much as I would love to say, oh, it's that and you need to do this. Nope. But all the videos that I do go up on YouTube as well. So if ever you do miss any and you can't find them on Facebook, sometimes it's easier to search on YouTube. Okay, so with that all polished up, there you go. So you can see that we've got all our individual layers, and you still have some of that residual kind of texture to it, but it's not a lot. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and hopefully see you in a couple of weeks' time. Take care for now, and if you have any questions or if you want to see a photo of the finished piece, I will try and put it up on the group. I haven't put the photo into the scrapbook yet, but as soon as I do, then I'll put that one up too, because I haven't done that either. Naughty Natty. Yeah, it is very upsetting for the presenters, because obviously we all spend time working out what we're doing most of the time. Occasionally we do fly-by, but most of the time we have them all planned and good to go. But there's always catch up. And thank you, Kay. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Anne. And thank you, Mum. I should say Carol and Carol, shouldn't I? Because we have two Carols.
Yeah.
And I will go post this up so that you can see it. And usually when I do the photos, it usually comes across a bit better, doesn't it, than it does on screen. Because at the moment you've got like glare. Hang on. Let's see if I can. I think if I tilt it that way. I go slow because there's a delay. There we go. You can see it a little bit better there. Okay. So take care.